Mic check. Think you're right. I think that's why the audio wasn't on. Okay, now, here we go. All right, every time we do this, every time it's audio problems. So today we're gonna make jerk tofu and potato salad. So let's get started here. We're already running behind. We had traffic today, so we are late getting home, late getting started here. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we need some paper towels. You can use also like an actual towel if you want, if your towels are very clean, but the problem is usually towels leave fuzz no matter how clean they are. So that's why we typically like to use paper towels, but it is a bit wasteful. So for today, we're definitely going to just use paper towels. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to prep our tofu. Now this is actually something that I normally would do the night before, which I already did last night, and I've already cooked the tofu. But we're going to go over the process still of how we got to that point. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our tofu. And you can slice this anyway. You could turn it this way, like this, and you can slice it like this, about, you know, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thick if you wanted to make full squares, and then that way it would fit on a piece of sandwich bread. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do this way, making it shaped about like that. So try to get it pretty uniform on the thickness. It's really up to you. The thicker it is, the softer it'll be. The thinner it is, the more crispy it'll come out. So we'll do that there. So now that we have our tofu chopped up, we're going to lay it out. Now normally we spend a little more time on this than we're going to today, just for sake of the stream. As usual, we're going to kind of speed things up a little bit. So we'd lay it out like that, and then typically I'd take paper towels, and I'd put like 3 or 4 of them thick at least, and I'd lay them down underneath it, and then I'd set the tofu on top, and then I'd put more on top of it like this, and you could put like another cutting board on top just to press it and sit on it. But today all we're going to do is we're just going to press it a few times just for the sake of showing how much moisture it will pull out of the tofu. So we're going to do this just a few times, just enough to get the point across. You want that moisture out of there though, because that moisture, it's basically tofu juice, which is really not very flavorful and really not very good flavor. So you want to get rid of that, because it's moisture inside the tofu that's taking up space that we can get the good flavors into. I've already cut the bread on the here, so we got a few breadcrumbs on there here and there. But we're going to dry that tofu out a little bit like that. Okay. Now normally, like I said, I would put this on the on both sides. For this case, we're just going to flip them over and press it one more time really fast. Just enough to make sure that it'll still taste good, but to do it very quick. So normally, like I said, put a few paper towels thick, and then set a plate or a cutting board, something like that, on top of it to press it and leave pressure on it for a little while. All right, now we're done cutting up the tofu. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mix up our sauce here. This is going to be our jerk sauce for this. So we're going to take just a regular mixing bowl. Just going to set it here on the cutting board, and we're going to put jerk seasoning. Just regular old organic jerk seasoning. We got it pre-mixed. You can make your own mix as well, but we bought the pre-mixed stuff. We're going to put some in there. We're going to take some organic shoyu or soy sauce. We're going to put that in there. Mix that up. Now normally, I want this to sit at least overnight, but 2 hours or so is really enough. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a little more soy sauce. The more jerk seasoning you put, the spicier it gets. Usually jerk seasoning is quite hot. So we're going to put our tofu in here, like so. Trying not to break it apart too much so it stays as whole as possible. Now you could leave it in a bowl like this, and that would be fine, but for the sake of room and making sure that each piece is in the sauce and the marinade really good, what I tend to do is to then take a Ziploc bag like this here, I like to dip them first and then put them in the Ziploc bags. And then, you know, make sure there's no dry spots. And if you need to stack them, then it's got marinade in between each piece. I'm going to put these in here like so. Typically when I do this, I make about probably 8 things of tofu. And then I marinate them like this, and then we bake them, and then we freeze it afterwards, which freezing it gives it a great texture. Plus, it's really easy then for snacks for work to make sandwiches and things on the go, to just pull out, you know, 5 or 6 pieces out of the bag of frozen and put it in your lunchbox, and it's unthawed about the time that you need it for lunch. Now I'm going to pour all that juice in there. And then the more of the air you get out of there, of course, the better. But close it up and then give it a little shake around, get it on everything, and then there you go. This can go in the fridge overnight. The next day it is ready to bake. And then typically with this meal, I also do, I normally do beans and rice if I'm going to do it for dinner, or I do, in this case, I'm doing potato salad, which really goes really well with the heat of the jerk seasoning. I'm going to get rid of the sauce off of here. So anyways, put that in the fridge. Next day, pull it out. You put a little bit of oil on a pan. You bake it on like 350 to 400 until it's crispy as you like it. So you can put it also on a like a baking sheet, like a wax paper, something like that, to keep it from sticking. But usually I find that I use a normal half sheet and use a little bit of oil in the pan, and it works fine. All right, so next, we're actually going to be prepping tofu also for the potato salad. Because normally, when I was younger, I used to make potato salad all the time with my mom, and what we'd do is we'd put egg in it. In this case, we don't want to put egg in it because we want it to remain vegan. So what I'm going to do is this time I'm going to slice it this way, like I was talking about, which makes for great sandwiches with the jerk tofu if you wanted to slice it that way. But just, this is more for ease of handling. So we're going to do the exact same thing as we did earlier. We're looking for the exact same outcome as far as drying it out. I want to just get the moisture until the paper towel stops soaking a lot of it up, okay? I want it to keep its shape as much as possible, so don't press too hard so that you're not smashing it apart. A couple more paper towels. This is what I was saying, it's actually quite wasteful to do this. It's a lot better if you have your own towels that aren't fuzzy. A more smooth towel is much better to use. So there we go. Get all this cleaned up, dried up a little bit here. All right. So now that we have our tofu pretty well dried out, what I'm going to do, line them up to make this a little bit easier, and I'm going to cut them into strips. So it makes little cubes. We don't want it to be large cubes, and we don't want it to be so small that they fall apart. And we're going to then put this on a plate over here to the side. A little bit of the tofu off the cutting board here. Okay, so now, of course, we have our potatoes, and we have some veganese. That's going to be the first thing we're going to put in here. Let's get that into the camera there a little bit. We're going to put some veganese in there, quite a bit actually. This is, I think that was probably 10 pounds of potatoes. 10 to 14 pounds, somewhere in there. We're going to put some mustard. And then we're going to use some salt, but this is a very special salt. This is not your normal pink salt. What this is black salt. So it's a very sulfur tasting salt. So we're going to make sure to smash that up. There's no big chunks. Put some of that in there. And it smells like egg, which is kind of what we're going for, because we want to add that egg flavor into the potato salad. All right, so then we're also going to add our tofu right on top of that. I guess we could have put that straight into the bowl instead of using the plate, but that's all right. So we're going to add that into there. And then actually we're going to set this to the side. So I have another couple ingredients that I need to prepare that need to be cut up. One is fresh dill. Now some people would use like relish in this case. But we've actually found that we kind of like to use fresh dill and fresh cucumber instead. So now this is fresh dill out of the garden, so there's some stems and things in here we're going to pick out a little bit so that we don't have too big a... You can get fresh dill. You can also get dried dill from most grocery stores. There we go. It's actually a good bit. Might not want to put all of this in there, I guess. All right, so we are going to pretty finely chop this. That's not too bad, I guess. Throw that right in the top there. Again, we're gonna kind of use a paper towel here to clean off the knife and the cutting board so that we don't get dill in everything that we are making. It's not working very well, is it? There we go. That'll do. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to chop up some cucumber. Now we don't want to use this entire cucumber for this. Actually, you know what? These ends are still good. So we're going to cut some rounds out of it here in case somebody wants that on their sandwich. Add that to that plate there. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to cut this thing down a little bit. We don't want the pieces to be too big in the potato salad. There we go. All right, same way that we like the cucumber in there, we found that we also like a little bit of shredded carrot. So we're actually going to shred a little bit extra so that we have some also if anybody wants it on their sandwich. The more veggies, the better. So we'll just move this lettuce over so we can cut it up next and make room to put the carrot down. Now I don't need much of the carrot, it's just kind of for color, honestly. And there we go. And now we mix that up and that'll be our potato salad, which we'll do here in just a second. We'll get this lettuce on out of the way here. Just gonna break it down a little bit. We want to keep pretty large pieces, but at the same time we want to make it a little bit more manageable for the sandwiches, so we'll just tear it down a little bit. Now this is more lettuce than we'll need for these sandwiches by far, but it makes a really good salad later as well for a snack. So no worries there. Get a few of these things out of the way here. All right. All right, let's go ahead and mix this up so we can be done here. This. Also, you could add a little bit of celery seed, a little bit of celery if you wanted. You could also add a little bit of pepper. And if it's not salty enough, be careful with putting more of the black salt. You might want to just put some regular pink salt, Himalayan salt. Try to use Himalayan salt as much as possible as well too, because it actually has a lot of minerals in it that are actually good for you, whereas normal table salt is pretty void of any nutritional value other than sodium, and sodium in anything over a small dose is not good for you. So one thing I've learned too is after cooking the potatoes, make sure to give a little bit of time for them to cool so that you don't end up with mashed potatoes. And obviously don't overcook them as well for the same reason. And there we go. Little potato salad there. Of course it's good, Marley. You just gotta start making some of the stuff that I'm making, man, and test it out. So it can stop looking good and it can start being good. You know what I mean? All right, so now we're gonna start, cutting up some of our veggies for toppings. I'm not gonna take too much time to do all of these, so we're just gonna take a couple pieces off of each thing. Yeah, man, you got to try the cabbage, the barbecue cabbage, and the barbecue cauliflower. Maybe I'll do one of those in the next few times here. Chop this stuff up. As far as toppings, I mean, honestly, I like this sandwich with just red onion, tomato, and lettuce. Little veganese on the bread. It's delicious. But these are all just examples of things you could do. Another thing that's pretty good is like their banana peppers or pepperoncinis. That makes a pretty good topping. Roasted red peppers too, especially if you don't have tomatoes. All right, so we're gonna cut up this tomato. We're gonna use a serrated knife to aid in slicing this a little bit. That one almost went on the laptop there. Now, like always, all of our leftover vegetable pieces go into the garden, into the compost pile, just to be put back into the soil to turn back into more veggies. We'll go without those. Chop this onion up real fast. Marley, if you like jerk sauce too, man, this ooh, shit. This jerk tofu is delicious, super spicy. Be careful doing this so you don't cut your hand. You can actually use a butter knife instead of a sharp knife. Take it like that, slice in these little cubes. I don't know if you can see that. And you can just squeeze it right out of there and it comes out in little chunks. Keeps you from getting your hands messy. You could also use a spoon and scoop it out, but then you're left with nothing but the skin there. Like I said, there's a lot of veggies here. I'm going to be cutting them up as soon as I'm done here, or somebody else will be for my family to eat because there's a lot of us. But for right now, I'm just going to kind of speed things up, especially since I'm already running late today. There we go. All right, another thing that we like to add to our sandwich here is some sprouts. So now after you pull the tofu out for marinating, this is what it'll look like after you cook it. So some of these smaller pieces like this, they're a little bit tougher, a little different texture. Some of the larger pieces will be softer. Can't really see that, but also if you freeze the tofu, like put it in the marinade and then freeze it and then let it thaw and then cook it, you'll get a little bit tougher texture. Some people like the texture of tofu if it's been frozen, especially if you're used to more like meat textures. People tend to like that a little bit more. All right, so we're gonna take our piece of bread here, put some veganese on it. We're gonna go ahead and just do a little bit of everything here. Little veganese, some onion in there, a couple bell peppers, a couple pieces of tofu. Put some avocado on here. Tomatoes. A couple cucumbers. Lettuce and carrot, and like I said, my favorite way to have this is actually just with lettuce, tomato, onion, and veganese. Put that on our plate. Some potato salad on there, and there you go. Delicious food, delicious. So like I said, the key thing to making the tofu good is to let it marinate overnight in the sauce, and then if you might want to even stick your finger in the soy sauce and the jerk seasoning mix. It'll be really salty, but it's good to get a good idea of like how spicy it is. The more of the seasoning you add, of course, then the hotter it's going to be, the more like savory and salty. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy. I'll post this video as always on YouTube. So if you guys are seeing this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're seeing it on Twitch, hit the follow button. And either way, whichever way you're seeing it, I forgot the sprouts on there. However you're seeing it, main thing is actually cook the food and try it. Because I guarantee after that, you'll click that button. All right. You guys have a great night. I'm going to eat this food, and then I'm going to get on Escape from Tarkov and shoot people in the head. Let's go.